and welcome to this, the first window on the TooFatLardies 2021 Advent Calendar. It's the 1st of December, and this year Richard, Nick and myself have recorded 24 Advent windows for you to enjoy. Behind each of the windows is an inspiration, something which has formed the germ of an idea that went on to inspire how we design, run or play miniature war games. I think you'll really enjoy each of the windows in this year's calendar, and to lead off on this 1st of December, here's Nick talking about his inspiration behind the rules in TooFatLardies games for wounds and shock.
I can't believe it's Christmas time already and we're back behind the Advent calendar. So let me squeeze out from behind this particular door to talk about what's inspired the thinking behind the mechanisms that we have around shock and wounds, which I think is something over the years we developed to be part of the DNA of the way that TooFatLardies rules operate. I think, like so many things in life, the inspiration behind this comes from reading around the topic. I remember back in, must have been around the early 2000s, when Richard and I started to work together to think about rules. I was very much into the idea of the psychology of the battlefield. What was going on for the men who were fighting these actions that I was reading about? How did it feel to be under fire? How did it feel to be seeing your comrades pinned down? Did it matter to you that there was what type of machine gun it was firing at you? Did that matter, or was it just the fact that you were under machine gun fire that was the relevant thing? And did the technology of war become secondary to the psychology of what was going on at that moment? And what readings around that demonstrated, I think, to me, or made Richard think about as well, I know from the conversations we've had, is that war's a psychological process. The battlefield is a psychological place, and the ability to get things done doesn't just depend on the fact that whether or not the bullet has hit you, but even whether or not the bullet is aimed at you and there's somebody over there that's trying to do you harm. And in various readings, most noticeably for me, the reading of The Sharp End of War, which is a book by John Ellis that I've recommended many times, this psychological impact really came out in a way that I didn't see reflected in the rules we were playing at the time. In the rules we were playing, you would fire at a group of men, you'd either hit them or miss them, and if you hit them, the fact that one of the guys had gone down seemed to make no difference on the men that were around them, or if you missed them, then the fact that they were under fire seemed to have no impact to what they then did. And it just started to feel wrong. So we thought about what was going on here. What was the combined effects of this firepower? So, I'm under fire, I may or may not be taking hits, my colleagues may or may not be getting struck down. So we initially thought of the idea of wounds. Well, a wound was a very definite thing, isn't it? A wound is somebody being struck by a missile and taking them out of the action. And that's a very obvious effect. Not only does it take the guy out that's hit by the missile, but potentially takes out people around him, and especially so as you come into more modern eras of warfare, where we tend to believe that people are more compassionate, to deal with the wounds of the men that are around them. Is it really the case on a Viking battlefield that if you struck down the person next to me, would I just ignore the fact that they've been struck down? Would I carry on as an automaton? Would the weight of the fact that I was seeing that with my colleagues, how would that affect me as a fighting unit? And of course it has to affect a fighting unit. So we realised that actually one of the mechanisms we needed to employ to get our rules to work the way that we wanted them to do, and for them to give us a feel of the action that moved it beyond the technical and that took the action into the psychological level, was this idea of shock, which started off as wounds and became shock. So the ability, therefore, your ability to make my ability to fight lessened as the action goes on. I lose cohesion, I'm suffering from sort of physical and maybe psychological exhaustion. I'm not feeling that I'm going to be fighting to the best of my ability, and the combined weight of that accumulated shock just builds as inertia within my unit. I become less able to function in the way that is straight out of the textbook. And of course, the rules we were playing at the time, people were operating by textbook. You fire at me, you might take some casualties, but I will still move as quickly next time as I did last time. Your firepower won't have any impact on me. And that just felt wrong. So the idea of shock, where you build an accumulation effect on your unit that slowly makes your unit less capable of fighting and holding the line and doing all the things that it would do straight out of the textbook, just feels right, just felt like the right thing to do. And the inspiration for those came from reading around the psychological impact of warfare on the men that fought it. And I still think that's something that gives us a real USP in the rules that we have today. And I'm really glad that we were able to develop it, and really thankful to Rich as well in the way that we developed it and the fact that it is now such a core part of the DNA in our rule sets.